I'm trying something new. I'm making a pivot, or I'm starting something new. I'm starting a new project. I'm doing something new, and it's scary, and it's scary, and it scares me.
If you're tired of the old cookie-cutter marketing advice and want to take your personal brand to the next level with bold, actionable strategies that truly reflect you, you're in the right place. Let's untangle your marketing mayhem with Zoe, the video confidence coach, on the Unboring Your Brand podcast. Unboring Your Brand was recorded on Wadawurrung land.
Yes, come join me. And you may be afraid to try new things. That is human, that is totally understandable. I understand where you're coming from. But if the fear is about how your audience will react, how your customers will react, it may not be imposter syndrome at all. Come with me on a journey. So this is a question spurred off by a conversation I had with Charlie. And the ultimate question that I'm asking here, or asking you and answering here, so please feel free to join me and answer out loud if it's not too distracting from people who are nearby. The question that they ultimately had was, how do I tell if I've got imposter syndrome or if I'm just scared that my audience won't care what I'm building? That is something to sit with. And I want to start off by establishing a couple of ground rules here. When it comes to imposter syndrome, you have probably heard it bandied about a lot in self-improvement spaces, in marketing spaces, essentially all the places that I live and breathe in. When it comes to imposter syndrome, that's actually not what it's called. It's called imposter phenomenon, because it is a occurrence that happens to all of us at some point. For a lot of us, it's multiple times. For some of us, it's just once or twice throughout their life. But I'm going to tell you now, it's probably, if you are doing something and taking action, you are going to feel an imposter phenomenon. But because it's something that occurs once, but then leaves. It can occur and then leave. It's not a perpetual syndrome. But imposter phenomenon, imposter syndrome, ooh, you've got something juicy there. And I think it's purely because the press love that particular term, and it gets people really thinking, because they think it's something that you have to live with, when no, it's just a phenomenon that occurs consistently. And if it's a phenomenon, it can be put in the theory basket. It can be put in the, oh, this can sometimes happen, but it doesn't really happen. No, it's real. And it has. And if you are listening to this today, there's a good chance this has happened to you. But I want to establish that ground rule today in the podcast. But I am going to keep referring to it as imposter syndrome, because of course that's the thing that we all know about. It is a feeling that we have that when you have a wobble in your confidence. It could be something that you're starting out new. It's a new project, a new idea that you have, or maybe it's something that you've been doing for a very long time. And you just have this phenomenon of a little wobble in your confidence. It's a name that we give it because us humans like to put things in labels and put things in boxes. And especially when it's a feeling that you experience as a human being, we like to be able to put a name onto it. This particular feeling that I'm getting into today's podcast is not the feeling of I'm not good enough, which usually comes along with imposter phenomenon. I said I was going to say imposter syndrome, but here I am saying imposter phenomenon. Who cares? Come with me. The feeling that I'm talking about today is not necessarily that I'm not good enough. It's the feeling of, what if nobody wants this? What if I'm making the worst mistake of my career? What if nobody cares? What if nobody gives a shit? And when you are building a personal brand, when you are doing your best to grow something that is going to help and solve people's problems, you are doing the action that no one else is willing to take. And you are going to come across this particular phenomenon a lot, especially when you try new things. The reason that I want to delineate and to have this complete distinction was not just because of the conversation I had with Charlie. This is something that is recurring and continues to happen a lot, especially with specifically my business personal brand people, but definitely people who are, even people who are, that I speak to on a regular basis, who are, say, organizers of, people who are building their personal brands, or community managers, or event coordinators, those type of people still feel this because they're making decisions not always from the same playbook. You're not constantly going back to the same well every single time to get inspiration, speakers, new people, whatever they're doing. But the reason that I want to delineate this distinction here is because this feeling is not necessarily an imposter phenomenon because it's not something you can entirely control. Entirely being the optimum word there. And I'm going to bring you on today's journey to see how we can mitigate that because we like to take things riskfully, but also without too much risk. So with the reason that I wanted to have that distinction is because it will change how you will ultimately respond to this phenomenon when you feel it. The next time you feel that feeling of, what if they don't give a shit? What if they don't care? What if nobody wants this? I want you to start this podcast again and bring me back into your ears to give you some support. Because even if things feel consistent right now, or maybe that feeling that I'm explaining is constant for you right now. You're making a very big leap, or you're making a big decision, or you're making a big pivot in what you do, and it's scaring you shitless. I want to uncover those roots and see what actually might be driving this for you, rather than just, a little bit of a wobble of confidence or butterflies in your tummy. When we are panicking as personal brand builders, you can probably imagine this comes up from time to time. It's not a constant feeling, and if it is, I definitely would go see a therapist or a mental health specialist because it's not necessarily a you thing if you're constantly in that mode. But of course, unless you can't point to something specifically. Okay, again, we're not a mental health podcast here, but of course, as you can imagine, a lot of the self-improvement and mental health stuff does come a lot with building a personal brand because you're inherently having a professional reflection of your personal self. But a lot of panic in what we do as personal brand builders shows up right before a big decision. So this is a new offer that you're offering, either be it a product, a service, or a combination of the two. Maybe it's a new direction, or maybe it's a different visibility push to what you usually do, or things that you've tried in the past, keeping in mind that you were the exact same feeling that back in the past when you made those big decisions, but maybe they paid off, or maybe they didn't. Either way, you're feeling that panic now because you're like, what if this doesn't work now? What if this is the thing that kills my career? What if the things that breaks me down entirely? And I become a sopping heap of bleh. I'm going to remind you that you are human. And when you are human, your brain, the thing that is making all these decisions for you, that tells you it thinks logically, but ultimately it actually thinks quite emotionally. Your brain consistently hits walls. And especially when you are trying something new, your brain wants to reach out to you and grab you by the shirt tails, pull you back, and try and bring you in a zone of safety. It'll kind of wrap you up in a blanket. And it tries to reach for safe tasks, safe busy work, or the status quo. Because it's safe. We know this works. Or it's safe. It may not work entirely how we want it to, but it's safe here. Because your brain wants to protect you. Your body follows your brain. And in instances like this, when you are worried about what other people think, because it's an element that's outside of your control, there is a feeling, especially with personal brand builders, that you can control your own brain. You can control how you think. You can control how you feel. And to mostly an extent, you can. But not entirely. And that's the part that most of us don't entirely like. And when you are stuck feeling this phenomenon, you can be stuck in a trauma response because you begin to question your talent, your expertise, your knowledge, and the fear of, if people won't give a shit often actually points to, will the customers, your clients, your audience, be as interested in this thing as I am? Obviously, you as the personal brand builder are the one putting in the work, or you are hiring a team to do the work for you to help you see that vision, or maybe you're bringing in outsider help or contractors. And if you need any help with personal branding or video marketing, you know who to call. You are building something. And there is resources on the line. There is time, there is energy, there is money, there is your reputation that is on the line if this doesn't work out. That's scary. And for a lot of us, we become quite used to this feeling, this imposter phenomenon, because we do it all the time. We get practice and we get used to that feeling because, well, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And you can imagine, especially with people who have a lot of resources, specifically in the money resource, but not necessarily in the intelligence resource, have a tendency of just throwing a lot at the problem because one of these things has got to work. Once we find the thing that works, we'll go down that route. Will it work forever? No, very rarely does. But for you as a personal brand builder, I want you to take the opportunity to identify this feeling, if you're feeling it now, or if you're going to feel this in the future, and understand that it is temporary. Because, again, your body is trying to save you from heartache, from stress, from worry, because that stuff is taxing. That stuff is taxing on your resources. And what I like to do with my customers or with people that I come across or with Charlie, like in this email, I take it back to something that I constantly spout about if you know me at the Video Confidence Coach. It is, what is your BFM? What is your bare effing minimum to get started? Because when you're in a place of fear, when you're in a place of being absolutely shit scared of what your audience is not going to care about, or if they care too much, or maybe if they are a bit apathetic in the middle, you start playing it safe. You start doing things that you know worked in the past because they worked in the past. What is the smallest thing that you can possibly do that can help you get towards your goal? What is the simplest thing? And specifically when it comes to your BFM, what is the small thing that you can do consistently to get you to that place? You have a goal, you have a dream, you know who you want to help and why, but you need to start somewhere. And I am incredibly guilty of this. I am incredibly guilty of constantly feeling this fear or confidence or wobble in myself. And then my brain immediately goes to, what if they don't care? What if it's shit? When honestly, I'm just trying to mask the fact that I'm shit scared. And when your fear is audience focused, your people, your community, the people who are your super fans, as well as the people that you just met, the fix is not necessarily trying to convince yourself that you are worthy. Because you're already feeling that. You're already at that situation of trying to reduce that guessing or that second guessing of yourself. And the way to do that is by creating MVPs. Yes, no, I'm throwing another acronym at you. But essentially what an MVP is a minimum viable product. And this is used all throughout the business world. So if you are a personal brand builder who doesn't have a business, don't worry, come with me. The mentality is still the same. Instead of making big leaps, big declarations, big things that may piss off your audience if you're scared about that, take tiny steps. Try what is the quickest, fastest, easiest, and cheapest thing that you can do to prove that this will work. And if your audience doesn't care, it's okay. You haven't lost days, months, years of your time. You haven't lost countless amounts of money. You haven't lost the respect or reputation of whoever, you're trying to convince you are a good guy for. Because it's a small thing that you're trying. You're trying to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. Move on. Take it as, yes, the failure that it may be. We're going to talk about another podcast episode about that particular type of failure. But if it didn't work, what do you learn from it? What can you change? What works and what didn't work? What do people say to you? And then from there, you can reiterate it into something that does work. Or maybe just drop it entirely and move with the knowledge that you have in mind and the experience that you have to then try something that will work. Because you need to try these things out. You need to test them in the real world. And the reason I'm mentioning this in the podcast is this is a problem I have. I have so often been scared to do the simplest, smallest, like little thing because I'm worried about what my audience will think. Or the audience that I've worked so hard to build is immediately going to drop me because I'm not saying the right things. And that is scary. But if you want to continue to grow your personal brand, continue to grow your influence, your reputation, your reach, whatever your goal is, or goals are, can level with me, you probably got goals are. When you have those things, you need to start making changes. You need to start doing it. And when it comes to those BFMs, what is the simplest, quickest thing that you can do to achieve that? And maybe, and this is a case for a lot of my personal brand builders, your BFM is really high compared to the people who don't give a shit, who do not care. Your BFM is really high compared to them, which means your level of quality is higher. Your level of responsibility is higher. But I want you to keep in mind that BFM, what is the tiniest test that you can do to prove that your idea, your pivot, your plans is going to work? Maybe it may not work with your current audience. That is okay. Many, many personal brands have different audiences depending on what they're focusing on. They are not foregoing the old audience, or they're not completely dropping them or abandoning them, which is usually a fear that people have, is that if I do something and my audience will abandon me. No, they followed you for a reason. They like your vibe. They probably won't, lose you completely unless you stop doing things. But you need to start with actions that are small, that are doable, that are safe enough for you to complete, but still push the nervous system a little bit so that phenomenon dissipates, because you're not on fire. You're not being eaten alive by a saber-toothed tiger. Yes, there is a fear, and a realistic fear too, that your audience won't give a shit. That's okay. You took the smallest step. You took the BFM to be able to make it happen, realize it. It could be a bigger thing. It can be a bigger thing if your audience wants it, because that's all we're doing for. When we grow our personal brand, it is for our audience. It is for the people that we want to serve. That is all we are doing it for. We do it for the people that our values align. We do it for the people that we once were. However you are growing your personal brand, it is okay if your ideas fall flat. Mine do all of the damn time. But it's because I've taken that action to put them out there. To take those steps. To see if the audience likes it. And it could also be a case that putting it out there, you find that the audience who is resonating, who needed to hear this, is not your current audience. Interesting. Now, do you also support them? And if their capacity is the correct and the idea that you have is worth it enough for the resources that you want to put into it, then yes, go for it. But you need to test this out in the real world to check. And that is for both you and for me. So recapping what we talked about today, just in case I got you in a bit of the weeds, as we like to do here on the Unboring Your Brand podcast. The imposter phenomenon, not syndrome, is something that comes and goes. It's not a consistent state that sits with you your entire life. This fear is not about to kill you. And even though it may feel like it at the time. But this fear that you have is not about your skill or your expertise or your knowledge. It is about your audience's reaction. And your experience and your trauma responses, to be perfectly honest, can look like procrastination, avoidance, and clinging to the status quo that no longer serves you. And more importantly, no longer serves your audience. So I want to ask you to stop trying to think your way out of the situation, because we like to do that as personal brand builders. We like to we like to think our way out of things, which doesn't always work. So in those moments when you're feeling this feeling, when you're feeling this phenomenon, I'm going to ask you to swap those I gotta think my way out of this to tiny tests, to tiny experiments. Seeing what the audience will say, and if they don't give a shit, that's not the end of the world. If they don't care, that is okay, because you're trying things. And even if you think it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread and it doesn't end up being that way, that's okay. Keep that knowledge for your own expertise and your own experience. Maybe shelve it. Maybe it's not the right time, and bring it back out when it is. Small actions build evidence, build consistency, and that evidence then builds to courage. And you can take it. You're not the cowardly lion. You've got the courage to make this happen. Thank you for joining us on this episode today. Please check out these next 2 episodes in your podcasting feed if you want to learn more about this. So the podcast episode I recommend for you is episode 34, Starting Before You're Ready. This is where I talk more about the phenomenon, but also be able to get that consistency going for you. That is an issue that I face constantly and still could face to this day. And I find myself listening to this own podcast to kind of get my motivation back on being consistent with those actions, because it's all well and good to have an idea, but if you don't action it, it's not really doing much for you. And the other episode that I want you to line up in your feed is episode 93, Trusting Your Own Marketing Mojo. So when you have taken on this understanding and knowledge about this phenomenon, you understand that you're not just, yes, you may be worried and you have that fear about what your audience may not give a crap or may not care, because understandably, it's not within your control. But when the results feel unclear, I want you to be able to keep going anyway if your MVP, if your BFM shows it, because you have the proof that you know it works. So, in regards to a simple action that you can take today, for those who are listening or watching today's podcast, of course, if you are listening or watching and you are doing it while operating heavy machinery, please don't, but just take this as an action you can do when you stop doing that. I want you to take the moment to just do like a simple writing exercise, get the thoughts and ideas out of your head with these couple of sentences. With everything that we've talked about today in mind, I want you to write one sentence about the direction that you want to take. What is the pivot? What is the change? What is the thing that is scaring you shitless? And then ask 3 real humans if that change interests them and why. Now, I want to ask these real humans, I'm going to specify, probably not your family and your friends, because they care about you. They want to, give you bolster, support. And they may not speak truth to power because, they have to see you every day. I recommend going to, say, a networking event, or maybe reaching out to your business connections that you've made online that you've fostered and kept. And if you aren't able to do that, check out my podcast episodes about fostering that network. An example of this is, I'm thinking about creating X to help Y. What part of that would be most useful to you? And it's about asking the question. It's about taking that step and making that change. And I know it's scary, and I know there is a fear that your audience won't care, but you won't know until you tell them. You won't know until you present them this opportunity. You won't tell them until they won't know until the message sinks in. And honestly, the message has to sink in at least a good 20 times in various different methods before they actually understand what you're saying. But that's why you do the MVP. You do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and you do it consistently while thinking about your BFM. Checking out the second link in the description, you will find out the tool that I recommend for people who are starting in this journey, or maybe you need to be recalibrated when it comes to the people that you're actually doing your work for, or maybe this new pivot is a new audience. Oh, now it's time to actually think about what that actually means. Check out the WTF is my niche. WTF is my niche. This is the tool that I have built that I run all of my clients through, that people honestly rave about, and thank you for your ratings and support regarding that. You can check out the second link in the description below. Essentially, it is a tool that is, yes, it's an AI that's trained on me, but essentially this tool enables you to have a clear document and a clear customer AI that breaks down exactly who you're talking to, why you're talking to, and why they should give a crap. Because if people don't care, it doesn't mean that you're in the wrong. It just means that they haven't heard the right message yet. If this has helped you in any way, please do hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss the next one next week. And if you are feeling oh so generous, please provide us 5 stars and a quick review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really helps more than you think, and I really appreciate it. Get out there and do the thing. I believe in you.
Thank you for listening or watching Unboring Your Brand. You can find detailed show notes with tools, offers, and episode transcriptions. Just click the first link in the description or go to vcc.training/podcast. Get involved and ask me anything about personal branding, video strategy, or just a friendly small business chat via my email, g'day@vcc.training. That is gday@vcc.training. The Video Confidence Coach would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which I record my podcast. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I stand with the traditional custodians of these lands in working towards a more equal future. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Look forward to me chatting at you next week, superstars.